I'm Brittany, and thank you for joining me today. You probably found this interview at my blog, pianoandpen.com, and I am so excited to have Karen Gillespie here with us. Did I say it right?
Yes, it is.
She is a songwriter, and we're going to be talking today just a little bit about her, getting to know her, and about songwriting and how she has gotten into songwriting, how it all started for her, and just whatever else we decide to talk about. So thank you so much for letting me interview Karen. And so for starters, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're at, and what you're doing right now?
Well, I am married for 32 years, have two beautiful, wonderful children and four beautiful grandchildren just recently. Had our
Oh,
second one, our fourth born grandchild about 2 weeks ago. And live in the state of Delaware. Been going to Pastor Royce Anderson's church for 41 years. And that's pretty much our life.
cool. So you are a songwriter. That's what you do. So let's kind of go back to the beginning, and why don't you tell me about writing your very first song, like what started it all?
Actually, I was in prayer. I was 16 years old, and I was reading the scripture about, hold on fast to what thou hast. Well, I just started hearing this song in my head, and actually I put that whole line in the song with hold on fast to what thou hast. But only the things that God will last. I just started learning kind of to rhyme things at that point, and I thought it was great. And then when I look back on it now, I probably wouldn't tell you any more about that song, but that little piece. But actually, it was my first song, and I just thought it was a blessing that night, just for me. And then I just kept writing songs. It just like from that day, it wasn't so frequent. Sometimes it would be once every 6 months. I'd have a tune that would just come in my head, and I thought, this is really fun. This is to write song. But each time I would just think, well, that was just for me. That was just for me. And after I had written about 100 tunes, I started wondering if it was meant to be more than just for me. So I started looking into different genres of music and trying to figure out how they made it work. I just was so interested. I'd study lyrics, try to figure out what did I like about that song. Why did I want to listen to this song? And that's what made me really start moving into songwriting.
That's interesting. Starting, I mean, from 16, then you've kind of been writing consistently since then.
Definitely when I got in my 20s, then I really started writing more consistently. When I started really feeling like it was a call of the Lord on my life, that I started studying it and reaching for that.
Yeah. So that experience kind of, I'm sure, has changed over the years. From your first song and how you wrote it till now, and probably the process of writing songs. What is the experience like for you now, or the process?
Well, I think, through the years you just grow. I used to feel when I was younger, when I wrote my first songs, that to try to change anything was wrong. I used to think, to try to improve it. Now the Lord gave me that, and how dare me think I can improve what I felt like the Lord had given me. And so when people would suggest when I was younger, well, maybe you need to relook at this area, I'm thinking, you don't understand, that came from God to me.
Yeah.
And then I realized that, it's like anything in life. If you learn to play a piano or whatever you're doing, you want to do it to the very best, to honor the Lord. And when I started learning to go back and make some changes, then it seemed like then I started really growing in my writing.
Yeah, I
So
think probably in the last several years, or maybe like 2 or 3 years, is probably when I really started like making that connection of it's best to actually edit, go back and look at things. You don't have to, that same exact thing you were saying. God gave me this song. How can I go and, I don't need to change it. It's good the way it is, instead of making it the best it could be.
yeah, it's true.
But I think probably a lot of young songwriters feel that way, especially, in the religious world, um, when they first get started, that, God gave me this, and it's a process, I guess, to learn that, hey, it's okay it's actually better if you'll, take a second look or leave it there and come back to it a week or so later even. Sometimes I've done that before. But yeah, so you're writing now as your profession, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so how did that happen for you? And how long have you been doing this, as your job?
Actually, when I was in my mid-20s, I had my sisters and I used to sing in what I would call a tri-state area, but it was more like a five-state area. We would sing in Maryland, Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Delaware. And we were in a couple competitions, and there was a group back in the day, Rex Neal and Singers, and they were having a competition, and we went and we placed in this competition. He asked us at that point, he said, "You girls need to be heard." So he pointed us to some people in the Nashville area, felt like we should be, out there singing full time, and we actually had made some connections. But at that time, my children were like 3 and 4. My sister had twins that were 2, and we just didn't feel like it was the right timing. We were actually offered a contract to travel full time at that time in our life. But, timing is everything, and we just felt like we needed to raise our kids, and that was our first responsibility.
Yeah.
And I always believed that if I did what the Lord called me to do then, that He would open a door for me later in my life.
That's
and so
very
when I
good
was
advice.
45, my daughter had gotten married, my son was in college, and I just heard this voice say, "So what is holding you back now?" And that's where it started for me again at 45.
Wow.
I decided to get online and see what was out there. And I came across a website that said Write, WRITE, about Jesus. And I thought that was interesting, And so I looked it up, and I told my husband I'd like to go. We had 2 weeks to prepare to go to St. Louis. And I'd never been to St. Louis in my life, so that was kind of fun. And so he said, "Let's do it." And I had no idea. I thought, well, the people that I want to hear me are in Nashville, not in St. Louis, but I really feel like I need to try this. So when I got there, almost everybody from Nashville was in St. Louis. They were the
Wow.
teachers, mentors, Sue Smith, she sponsored it, and she's just fantastic. She's a fantastic writer, and she just had a heart for the writers to improve writers. And so she started this, I call it a workshop, and I've been going. I went for like 5 years in a row, and every year, like they had competitions, and I would place, but I didn't place first. I would place in my class. And one year, after like 5 years, a song that I co-wrote with a friend of mine, Helga, we won the first place. That sent us to Nashville, and it just seemed like from that day, just doors just started opening for us.
Wow.
It's kind of fun. Yeah, we wrote a song called my mind's going blank on that song right now. I have so many songs in my mind today, but "You Sweep Me Off My Feet." That was the name of it. "You Sweep Me Off My Feet."
That is so cool. So then I guess from that point, how you guys won this competition, you got to go to Nashville. So what was the next step for you as far as getting you from that point to actually working for, a company?
Well, I think that's really the catapult, because when I went to Nashville that week, I was able to write with people like in Day One. They had writers in Day One. I was in the Brentwood Benson building. I was writing with Sue Smith, which my heart was palpitating, like, I cannot believe I'm in here. And it was kind of funny because I said to her, "I'm so excited. I've been trying for 20 some years to get my foot in the door, and now my whole body's in here, and I'm so excited I can't calm down." So our first co-write, I was like talking a lot. But it was just exciting. I got to write with Marty Funderburk, this song that just was recorded recently last year it was Greater Vision, the Booth Brothers and Legacy 5 recorded a Christmas song that I wrote during that trip. We wrote that song ago, me and Marty. So anyway, it got recorded last year, and they just released a live DVD recording of that, November 30th.
And what was the name of that song?
It was called "It Will Always Be Christmas to Me."
Okay. So that's something that people can go and check out.
Yes,
because it's out there. So what is it like then, I guess, being on the professional side of it compared to, just being a songwriter, I guess, for yourself? Is there a difference? Do you have a different approach to your songwriting because of it? I know it sounds like you do a lot of co-writing now.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about what it's like actually being in the music industry as a profession.
Well, it's exciting.
I bet.
You've been trying for so long to do something, and then it's like it's here. Honestly, the first few times I got really close to it, I almost panicked, like, oh my goodness, all these years and it's here, and now what do I do with it?
Yeah.
But honestly, I really believe it's been a journey for us because my husband, I'm just going to tell you what really brought us into this part of the where I got my contract.
Okay.
My husband was a professional for 17 years. He was a contractor, and about 3.5 years ago, he fell off a roof about 15 or 20 feet on his head. And when I got to the job site, because I already had an appointment with a homeowner about something, the ambulance was in the yard, and we thought, oh my goodness, I hope the homeowner didn't fall down, or never dreamed it was my husband. And when I got in the car, the paramedics were saying, we've lost him, we're not going to get him back.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
just stood out there and just started screaming, Jesus, Jesus. Well, one of the first people I called, of course, was my pastor. And I called Sue Smith, and I asked for people to start prayer chains. And it was like so many prayer chains went up immediately. They airlifted him to a hospital near Philly. But during that time, it was like, I guess, I don't know, it was a time that I really feel like I just became real with God. Not that I didn't serve him, but I don't know, it was just something that happened to me during this period of my life. We had a period of time that year. We had like 35 funerals. We were actually watching a generation expire in our family, and it was a really tough time in our life. But some of the professionals that I had been working with up to that point, everything that I was writing during that time, they would say, Karen, this is the most deep writing you've ever submitted. Something changed in my writing during that time in my life.
Yeah.
So I think the Lord just helped me to learn, sometimes he just takes the situations in our life and just helps us to dig deep. And I think that's when I really became really serious. Even though I thought I was serious all those years, I knew that I had to really get a hold of this. And just, I don't know, it just seemed like God used that, during that time for me to just really dig deep. And it changed how I was writing and what I was writing about.
And so that change, is that kind of what resulted in you getting a contract then?
It was. I've been working with a man named Joel Lindsay, who's a great writer. He's a fantastic writer. And he took an interest at me through Write About Jesus. I had written a song one day, and I sang it on the platform, and he just kept saying, did you write that? Did you write? He just really, really liked the song, so he started letting me send material to him. And during that time, I had written a children's musical that I just really loved for our kids. And I just prayed, Lord, if this is your will, let him instant message me. I mean, he never had, ever. And I just wanted to know if I was really, if this is what I'm supposed to do, then I want to do it with all my heart. And if it's not, then I want to find out what I'm supposed to do and do it with all my heart.
Yeah.
But I just really was at a point where I wanted to know. And that was an impossibility because he had never done that. And I asked the Lord to let him do that. And I looked up on my screen, and he said, hey, Karen, like while I was on the computer. He was in California, and I'm like, wow, this is too cool. And so he invited me to send some stuff to him, and I sent the musical. And I got a phone call a few days later, and he was just laughing. He said, Karen, I didn't know you did things like this. I am pleasantly surprised. I mean, he was just like, wow. And he presented it to Brentwood Benson at that time, so there was some definitely interest in. They were talking about, producing it, publishing it. So it just seemed like from that point, but I wasn't really signed with anybody. I was working with Joel, but I wasn't like a exclusive writer.
Yeah.
And so during the time when my husband was going through this, we were actually at probably our lowest ebb in our life that night because he couldn't get a job because people were afraid of the word brain trauma, and it was like really hard for us. And we didn't know what we were going to do. We were like, just don't know what to do. I walk in the house, and I check my email, and I had an email that night from Marty Funderburk saying, Karen, Greater Vision, Booth Brothers, and Legacy 5 are interested in our Christmas song. I think they're going to record it. And I was like, tears were just streaming down my face. Well, my husband was praying about this job. I know it entwines because he really needed a position at that point. We had to give up our business because he couldn't do the things that he, had once done.
Right.
And so we were praying about it that week, and I said, God, we've got to have answers this week. It just has to work out. It was on a Thursday. He made a phone call because my daughter felt impressed. My daughter actually had a dream and told him who he was supposed to call.
Wow.
This really happened. So he called this guy. He had a job at 1:30 on Thursday. That night at 9 o'clock, my phone rang from a man who is in my circle of friends, but I didn't know him.
Yeah.
And he said, I've been listening to your music on the internet, and I want to know why you're not signed. And I said, I don't know. And he was like, you know what? You make a phone call tomorrow. You tell these people that I said they need to hear you. And I was nervous wreck. I'm like,
wow.
Do that was out of my comfort zone. I didn't want to call them and say they need to hear me,
Yeah.
Well, I asked the name of the owner because this particular company I hadn't had any, I had never run across them before. I'd read, through the Write About Jesus, but I had never heard of Crossroads until like 2 weeks before I read about them in a Singing News magazine.
Wow.
And so I said, well, who's over this? And he told me the guy's name. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I said, he published some stuff of mine when I was 20-some years old. And
well, that's cool.
I just thought he disappeared from the music industry because I never, I lost contact with him through the years. So the next day I called and I said, Chris, this is Karen Gillespie. I was thinking I'm going to have to explain who I am, And he's like, oh my gosh, where have you been?
How cool.
That's what where have you been? And I'm like, oh, you remember me? Couldn't believe. And his answer was, if I were to tell you a tune of a song that I took of yours years ago, I would lie. But I can tell you the title. And he whipped out that title just like that of a song from 20-some years ago.
Wow.
Too cool. I just knew it was God. It's like everything just kind of just gelled together, and it was just the right timing. And within 2 weeks, they had like 7 of my best songs. And then by the next June, they decided they were going to sign me as a exclusive writer. So
now, pretty much everything that you write, or I'm guessing everything that you write does it go straight to them?
Yes.
Is that how it works? I've actually never talked to somebody who, I guess, was signed with a publisher, or so it's interesting to know how, what the process is like. So everything goes to them, and are they just connected with artists that are looking for songs?
Yes, and the fun thing about it, I think I write a lot of genres. I've never been able to settle to do one thing.
Yeah.
I love writing children's musicals. I love writing, Pentecostal, Black gospel style music, and I've written some contemporary worship, and I've written some Southern gospel through the years. But the door that seemed to be wide open was in the Southern gospel genre.
Mm-hmm.
So I was afraid if I would give in and just do only that I would lose all the other, because I like that feel,
Yeah.
So anyway, it's really actually been a great thing because I am able to still write. I write a lot of Southern gospel with that edge to it.
Yeah.
So it could actually easily cross over into another genre and still could sometimes be choir music or whatever. And I also, the publisher that I'm with, he said, we've only dealt strictly with Southern gospel, but they were kind of tickled because now we're pitching to people like I told him I knew Vicky Yohe was going to be going into the studio. He's like, okay, I'll write to her. And he did, and she invited us to submit, but she had just finished like that. She was going in the studio like the next week. So.
Oh.
He said for a future, so it's kind of opening the door for them too. In future times we could submit because he knows I like to kind of write all of that.
Yeah.
He said he's game to, try to pitch it to whoever.
And that's good for you too because it allows you to get other genres, out there as well, or connect in other genres and not just be stuck in one, especially because you like it.
Yes. And also the thing is if he hears a song the way my contract is written, and they just feel like they can't get it cut,
Mhm.
then it's mine. So I can submit it on my own if I can find someone that, would be interested in it.
Okay, that's cool. So, um, who has the ownership of the songs then?
Well, you always own your song, but they, like, everybody has different contracts. The way that it's set up for me, if they don't get a song cut in the 3 years that I'm with them right now
Hmm.
on this contract, at the end of that time, then it's still your song. If it's a song that they've contracted and they've got it cut, then it's always under their publishing. It's always your song, but it's
Okay.
always under their publishing.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, I've never really looked into, I guess what the process is and what it's like. So it's definitely interesting to hear that information. So you do a lot of co-writing then. Is that something that you have done from the time you were young and had just started writing, or is that something that you kind of have done more now that you're in a professional setting?
I'd never co-written a song until like probably 10, 15 years ago ever. I wrote a couple times with somebody local, but they were just kind of moving into it like I was, and we really wasn't sure what we were doing.
Yeah.
So when I went to write about Jesus, one of the first things that they do the first night is let you watch a co-write session. You just sit
Oh,
there,
that's cool.
watch two people create a song, which really, really helped me. I don't know. It seems like co-writing is just really what a lot of people do now. It used to maybe be frowned on more, but it's really, I think it's great because if you have a great song and you know it's a great idea, you have the benefit of another great mind
Yeah.
to make that song become great. And it's I love it. I've almost become now that I'm doing this all the time. I used to write by myself all the time, and I told my publisher sometimes I think I'm a little lazy because I'm just like dependent on these co-writers to come hit me home. So
Well, it seems,
it's fun.
I guess from someone who hasn't really co-written, it seems like it could be a scary process. I don't know, maybe just the idea of not of losing that control over a song. So what would you tell someone who hasn't co-written, I guess, before that's getting into it? What advice would you give them, that would be the best way to go about getting involved or, finding someone that they were comfortable writing with?
That's kind of it's a little bit of a complicated question because, what I did when I started learning to co-write, I just got to learn the people from writing about Jesus. There were some people that I just kind of became friends with,
Yeah.
and we're doing like we're doing right now. We just started talking, kind of getting to know each other, and then one day this girl said, I have this idea that I just think is really, really great. Would you look at it? And I said, sure. So she emailed me her idea, and I just flipped. I mean, I'm riding down the road and I'm starting to sing this song, and I'm like, so I called her, and we ended up doing. Now at the time they didn't have the Skype and all that,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we actually called each other on the phone, and we just wrote it like on speakerphone.
How cool.
And now they have a program called the Google Docs.
Oh, yeah. I've used
You can
that.
see what they're writing, and they can see what I'm writing at the same time. And we'll also, now we do Skype with it too, but sometimes me and my friend will still just put the speakerphone on and talk and type,
Well,
because as
that's,
long as we hear each
yeah.
other's tone on their voice, and it works for us.
Well,
But
I think like what we're doing right now, the Google Hangouts, I'm pretty sure it's compatible with Google Docs as well, so that you can be using, both things at the same time. So that
that's
might be
good.
something you could do as well, especially if you already like using Google Docs.
Yeah, I do. I love it. And I think it's a really great tool too but as far as the co-writing part, you have to find someone that is compatible with what you're doing. And it's like they taught this to us that if you find out that you've written with a person for 2 or 3 times and it just doesn't seem to be flowing the way it should, there you should be good enough friends that you can say, what, we'll always be friends, but I just don't know that a writing relationship is going to work, for us to write together. And you should be able to be honest with one another and say, and just be friends.
Yeah,
And they may find somebody else that they just write really great with.
that's
So
true.
I don't know. That's how it worked for me. I just started getting to know people, and we tried to write a song, and here it was like, wow, this is great. I don't know. I've got me like a little circle of friends now that I write with a lot.
Yeah. And that's cool too, because you probably have a trust, I guess, between you guys. And obviously, you like what they do, you like the way they write, so that makes a big difference.
It does. It's just really getting to know one another. Some of your co-writing sessions, when you first start out, you'll find out, oh my goodness, we've been talking for 45 solid minutes. We haven't even wrote our first word. Some co-write sessions end up, let's just go out and have lunch.
Yeah.
Let's go get some coffee or. And sometimes when you do that, you actually start writing in the coffee shop because you'll start talking about what your ideas are. And by the time you get back to the writing room, you're like, let's just go at this.
Yeah. So do you normally start with an idea for a song and then just kind of build on that? Because I don't know, whenever you're starting, to me, I'm thinking, okay, if I'm coming in to write with someone, it's like, where do you start? We just start, tossing out whatever comes to mind, or what?
Well, actually, most people just like we'll say when we're ready to write, we'll say, you know what? I've had this thought that's been really deep on my heart, for a few days. I'm gonna go ahead and type this out, and if I had a tune already with it, I may go ahead and sing part of the chorus that I've written or whatever. And then you just give them a time to think about it a minute, and sometimes it just really hits them, and you're like, let's do this now. You may not even hear another idea,
Yeah.
But if it doesn't really strike them, then you say, hey, is there something that you've had on your mind? Well, that's happened so many times. I've come in thinking, this is great, we're just going to write this song. But then they've come up with something that I'm like, just set this aside, because their idea just really, really struck me.
Yeah.
And sometimes when that happens, we've actually written songs in half an hour, 45 minutes. Sometimes it's 5 hours, sometimes it's 5 days. I mean, there's no pattern.
Yeah.
Just how it flows.
So as far as writing, because I think too, probably as an amateur writer, it would be like, for me, I don't write consistently as much as I should, but especially because it's, your profession as well. But do you encourage, or do you yourself practice just writing, all the time, just constantly putting ideas down, even if nothing comes out of it? What do you think about that, or what would you tell someone?
Never lose an idea, even if you don't have time to write it all out. If you have a thought that just comes to your mind, find a way to get it down. I have written on backs of checkbooks. There were so many times in my life when someone would think that I was over there balancing my checkbook in church, because at the time we didn't have all this new, that's what you had to jot on, I got to get my checkbook out. And I wouldn't suggest this. I've almost wrecked the car a couple times getting my checkbook. Write this down when you're driving, because we didn't have no cell phone. Back in that day, there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
But now I use my cell phone a lot. I will call my house if I have to and leave a message, and I'll sing a tune on my home phone if that's the only way I can get it down.
Yeah.
But I would say never ever let a thought, if you have a thought that you really believe is a good thought, find a way to get it on paper or sing it into your phone or do whatever you have to do. But I don't have time. I shouldn't tell you, this is not a good habit, but just because of the holiday, I have made a habit of writing pretty much every day. I had, at some points this year, I've had co-write sessions. I've had 2 a day sometimes, or 1 a day, 4 or 5 days a week.
Wow.
So yeah, when we're really, but the holiday season, it kind of
slows.
Oh yeah, slack up a little.
Nobody blames you.
Yeah. We just had our children's program, so I still do the children's musicals for Christmas, and sometimes you just kind of. My publisher said it was okay. Everybody does it this time of year, so it's okay. I called him last week. I said, I promise I'm still here.
Yeah. Advice then for songwriters. What general advice, or even specific, but just what advice would you give young songwriters or songwriters that are looking to, make that, they're passionate about making that their career? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that they are blessed beyond measure, because in the day that we're living in, the resources are just incredible. I mean, when I was young, the resources were like that, you know what I mean, as far as songwriting.
Yeah.
But now there are so many workshops. I mean, the Write About Jesus workshop, there are several workshops. If you get online and just say Christian songwriting workshops, they are all over the country. Some of these guys, like Sue Smith, and I know Joel, he's done some things recently in Atlanta. They'll even come and do small group sessions. So if you have an area in wherever you're at and you have a group of young songwriters that want to learn more about it, you can call. Sometimes people will come actually to you and do small one-on-one sessions, songwriting sessions, which I think is great. If you ever have a chance to be in anything like that, definitely check out your resources online. I firmly suggest Write About Jesus because it is just, I'll be honest with you, I went there thinking, boy, they're just going to be so impressed. I told Sue later that I did this, I'm like, they're just going to be so impressed with all the songs I've written and all that I know. And I said, then I sat there and I'm hearing these guys talk about songwriting. And I said, I just started shriveling in the chair. I said, I'll tell you what I learned my first year there. I learned how much I didn't know about songwriting. That's what I learned, you know. But I think that you need to be involved in every seminar that you can get into, because honestly, when it boils down to it, it's learning to be the best, but it's also about building relationships, and you have to know people. You just do.
Yeah.
And you need to, you know, I think that was really a catapult for me, because it's like I said, 5 years, and I was still like, every year I left there thinking, oh my goodness, I've learned so much. It's like, you know, you can't learn it all in one time. They offer so many classes in so many areas, you know, from the music part, the business part, and I just think it really helped me grow as a writer. It really did. Yeah.
Awesome.
I like it.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you and for sharing your story with us. I think it's going to be a really great encouragement and offer a lot of insight, especially to songwriters that are, you know, either just starting or, you know, deciding that they might want that to be their career as well. Because, there's a lot of stuff that you had said that I hadn't even really thought of or had heard before. So, but yeah, thank you so much for letting me interview you.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Very nice.
Cool. And you guys can check us out on social media. I'll include the links somewhere in this post, and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. Thank you guys for watching.